Hey everybody, my name is Ryan Floyd, and this is my video podcast, AskAVC. I'm an early stage venture investor with Storm Ventures, and we invest in B2B SaaS companies. And I'm here today with Dominique Levin, who's joined me for now a couple of videos, and she's with co-founder and CEO of a group called Winning by Design. And Winning by Design focuses on go-to-market help, strategy around marketing and sales, and really trying to help your company get to the next level, just around B2B SaaS, just like Storm. And we're fortunate to have worked with Winning by Design for a number of years now, really since I started in 2016. And Dominique's joined me for a couple of videos, and I think today we're going to talk about onboarding and how important onboarding is to your business. So let's get
onboarding customers, right?
Onboarding customers. So let's
That's
get into
right.
it. So onboarding, I've done a video before on churn, and it's really worth spending, I think, more time on it because we've spent a lot of time here talking about leads and how to optimize your lead strategy. And in the last video, we really kind of got into it's so important because it really makes you think about you've spent all this effort bringing a customer through the buyer's journey that now onboarding is really critical. And so I think it's worth just taking that step, just post-deal, to talk about what are some successful strategies, what are some pitfalls to avoid, and really how to be successful with your onboarding strategy. Maybe a good place to start is beyond just the obvious, why is onboarding so critical? And it it's surprising, I think, to so many that it often goes off the rails.
Right. Yeah, so there's a couple things to think about when you onboard new customers. So first of all, we talk about customer retention or customer churn. I hate that word. I think I told you before. I'm an optimist. We're retaining customers. We're expanding them,
churn.
right? Let's do it.
Right.
But anyway, so really when you think about your retention, there's two phases to that, or three even. Like some customers fail to launch. They never even get out of the gate. So I call that sort of onboarding retention. Or then you have ongoing retention. Some customers do get out of the gate, they do get fully deployed, but they do or do not renew with you. And then the third step would be the group of customers that do or do not expand, right? So clearly, onboarding is important to reduce churn, right? To make sure that we don't lose people right at the gate.
Yeah, you're virtually guaranteed, right? If you don't onboard a customer well in 30, 60, 90 days,
Right.
you're almost guaranteed to churn.
Right.
over
You're guaranteed
time.
to churn. So that's why also, by the way, if you have a retention problem,
Right.
first figure out, is it an onboarding problem, failure to launch, or do people get disappointed and fall off the track
a product
later?
problem, expectations weren't met, something like
So
that.
that is important. But it actually is important even beyond that, right? If you think about customer satisfaction, it's all about meeting or exceeding customer expectations. But do you know what your customers' expectations are?
Right.
Now, what happens, the most common mistake is that onboarding is just seen as a technical challenge, right? So I'm like, okay, great, Ryan, welcome to my product.
Right.
Let's get you going, right? Shall we? Let's configure your user account, and let's set you up for some training. Does this sound good?
Right, yeah, great. Let's do it.
Great, let's do it. Okay, but what did I just miss?
What my problem is. Yeah,
What's your problem?
what's my expectation?
So hopefully,
Right.
I got some of that from sales. But think about it,
Yeah.
right? Even if my sales is amazing, fabulous, that's pre-sale, right? So we're not yet at the same side of the table. So there might be a significant amount of posturing happening on the part of the customer. I would say it's not just onboarding, but if we're more specific, the most important meeting you'll probably have with your customer during its entire life cycle is the kickoff meeting.
Right.
Now, I'm not talking about setting you up with your username and password and signing you up for training.
Right.
The real goal of the kickoff meeting is to truly understand what your problems are and to define together what does success even look like.
Right.
What is success in 90 days? What is success in 1 year for your company? And you don't always get that from sales. It's not always possible for sales to get that information pre-deal, right? Because you're still negotiating, you're posturing.
Right.
But now I've signed the deal. We like to call that commit, right? We've committed to do business together, to partner together. I'm also in a sort of honeymoon period, right? I'm really excited about this new product I've bought as a customer. So this is a great time to sit with me and sort of vision about what could be, right? What could be in the future?
Right.
What does success look like? And to re-diagnose, as we call it, me as a customer, what problems am I looking to solve? And what could potentially get in the way of being successful in the coming year together.
Right. I mean, I sometimes sound like a broken record, but I think it plays here the concept of value. It's, really understanding what is value. So you're talking about a business meeting,
Yes.
not a technical meeting.
That's exactly right.
I need to know how to integrate data. I need to understand your APIs. I need to understand how to
Right.
set up username and passwords. But really what I need to understand is, what is your expectation?
Right, so what does that mean?
Yeah.
Who should be in that meeting?
Right. Well, it should be certainly the champion, but it
Right.
also needs to be the decision makers,
Right.
and it needs to be any other stakeholders that are in the...
So often missed, right?
Yeah.
People will have the technicals, like, okay, the deal got signed by the whatever VP marketing, now
Right.
some project coordinator will do the kickoff. No,
Right.
right?
It's so much more important. Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
it's so much more important. So you mentioned, trying to get multiple people in the meeting, not just your champion. I think it's important to really, I think for founders to really understand why that's so important, because it's not really intuitive. They're not the buyer, so I've gone through the sales process, I got my champion. Why do I have to have all these other people involved? And sometimes it's hard to get them involved because they've got other priorities and they're not that interested. I mean, the first thing that I think about is you risk champion churn later on. I've talked about that in another video, but the problem is if you're only dealing with one person that really understands the value of what you're trying to help them with, if that person leaves for whatever reason, then you're really at risk of churning, because then no one else in the organization really knows why the heck they bought this product in the first place, right?
That's
and what
right.
problem they were trying to solve. But I think there's a lot of other really good reasons to have multiple stakeholders, if not physically in the same meeting, multiple meetings, to make sure you tie it all together. How do you sort of think about that?
So you want multiple stakeholders involved in that meeting for many reasons. Like you said, you want to have multiple touch points throughout the relationship. Multiple stakeholders may also have completely different expectations.
Right. Yeah, because you have the champion that's maybe using the tool, but maybe you have the decision maker, or the person who's financially on the hook for it,
Right.
that has a different set of expectations or things that person wants done.
And you often have to get quite high in an organization to take away roadblocks, or things that might occur, that might prevent a solution from being fully deployed or fully adopted or expanded later on. So actually maybe it might be helpful to step back for a second and to realize that your customer doesn't actually know necessarily what it takes to be successful with your solution.
Right.
A question that I often ask people is, so how often have you deployed your solution? So I might ask a customer success manager, right, at one of your companies, and they look at me weird, like, what is this trick question? Like, what do you mean, Dominique? Like,
It's my job.
yes, a lot, like 200 times.
Right.
I'm like, right, yes, of course, 200
Yeah,
times.
right.
I'm like, what about your customer? And like, eyes get even bigger. Like, what is she getting at? Like, I don't know, like never, like
Right.
once maybe at their previous job. I'm like, do you realize that you just told me that you are 200 times more expert in what it takes to be successful with our solution than your customer is, right? And these might be little things, like we were working with Nearpod, which
Right.
is one of Storm's portfolio companies. They have a solution for schools, and Nearpod learned that if they send some swag and give away T-shirts to teachers who are starting to use Nearpod in the classroom, then that increases adoption. Or they learned that if one of the teachers does a
Simple
lunch
insurance policy, yeah.
simple, right?
Yeah.
Or if a teacher does a lunch and learn, right? An early adopter teacher does a lunch and learn for her colleagues, that will increase adoption. I know
Right.
these are little things, but don't forget
But
to
you
tell.
learn those best
You learn
practices.
those.
Yeah, if you do them over and over again. But you can't expect the customer
To know. Right?
Yeah,
So
right.
tell them. So
Right.
during the onboarding meeting, tell them we've learned from good schools that it really benefits to appoint an ambassador, to do lunch and learns, to give away T-shirts, whatever the case may be. And also on the flip side, like things might go wrong if your teachers do not attend training. So let's make sure we don't fall in that pitfall, and let's sign your teachers on for training. So this is very important discussion that many companies miss.
I think along with that too, it's sometimes counterintuitive, but for larger enterprise deals, it almost always makes sense to actually attach service revenue to those deals. And people are like, oh, I'm selling SaaS, it makes me nervous, I got a service thing. But it makes sense because if you have a service contract that has a dollar value assigned to it, it forces you to really spend time making that customer successful. And then sometimes entrepreneurs come in and they say, well Ryan, if that's the product, why do I even charge services? Like I should just have it like built in. And the answer to that question is if you're selling to really large enterprises, it's easy to get taken advantage of in terms of the services you deliver. And if you don't scope it, right, then the the expectations back to value and what people expect can just be all over the map. So it doesn't mean you want to make money off of services, but really attaching it to the product really helps to guarantee that you're making them successful.
I love that point. And we actually have some data to back that up. We've seen across companies that if you attach services, or if you make people pay for training on your product, maybe as simple as that, right? Even if it's a smaller deal.
Yeah.
Customers that pay for training have higher retention rates.
Right.
Customers who pay for services have higher retention rates.
Right.
So absolutely.
It's like this forcing function.
I know.
Yeah.
And they take it serious too, right? So if customers don't pay, they show up, they don't show up. If they pay for training, if they pay for services, they're going to take it serious, right? And they're going to show up. So so absolutely, it's win-win for you. You get more revenue, but it's actually better for the customer because they're going to get more out of the solution.
Yeah, and I think for like large enterprise deals, like I think a lot of our companies, they just attach it. It's just you cannot sell the product without a certain amount of services because back to the point we were talking about, the churn is so brutal in terms of the cost. But if you have this really expensive customer that took you months to land and the sales cycle was long, and maybe the deal value is high, so it's a great customer, you just can't afford to churn. So you're going to do everything you can to make them successful. Yeah. Well, this is great. I think this is super. It's probably a good place to end on onboarding. Thank you, Dominique, for coming and joining me. Thank you all for listening and watching the video. If you liked it, please subscribe. Leave us comments on this video or really any video that you'd like to see in the future, or just thoughts in general about onboarding or anything SaaS related, and be happy to talk with you more in the comment section about it. And until next time, thank you very much for joining.